Hey everyone, we have Greg Woolridge here, candidate for governor. Greg, why don't you explain some back history of yourself and how you got into this whole race?
Hey, Corey. Hey, I got into it because some guys talked me into it. They said, "We looked at your background. You had 27 years in the military. You got to do some really interesting and productive leadership things. Leading the Blue Angels on 3 occasions, and having led an air station that was judged as the best in the world, even though it was built in the 50s and it was kind of a struggle to keep it up. It was still found by the president to be the best naval installation in the world. It was like a small state. So that kind of running that air station, a master jet base, gave me some foundation for what I'm about to do when I become governor. So that's
a good point.
more background wise. I grew up in the Midwest, and out in the woods a little bit. I didn't, to be honest, straightforward with you, I didn't hunt. My dad was an athlete, and he never took me in the woods. He never taught me how to change the oil in my car.
That's funny.
But he taught me basketball, all that stuff. So, but I've always respected gun owners and guns. So I went into the Navy right out of college, 27 years worth of it. It was great. I immediately got my ribbons for marksmanship and sharpshooter and all that good stuff with a 45. That was kind of fun.
Oh, yeah. Would have been that back then.
So I've had as far as my exposure to guns, when we started to go to the Gulf War, as you and I talked about previously that I did, one of the guys' dads owned a gun shop, and he sent us all Rugers, 9mm Rugers, to carry with us.
Oh, nice.
I've had that beauty, since 1990, and I love that thing. It's big. It's a big handgun. And then I bought a Kimber and a Glock. So I've got those. Got concealed carry.
So a handgun guy for the most part.
Yeah, that's it, right.
Yeah.
But I've planked a little bit with a 22. Go out in a remote area and shoot tin cans and stuff like that. And have fun.
Nice.
But that's about what I've done with guns. My background, military, of course, like I mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
So I fired some big guns, but they were from the nose of my airplane.
This is some big, yeah.
Quite big. 4,000, 6,000 rounds a minute. Of course, I carry about 750, so you don't get a full minute out of them.
Jeez.
But had fun with those. So
trigger control seems important at that point.
Sorry.
Trigger control seems quite important at that point.
And pipper control.
Yeah.
You gotta be on target. Yeah.
No, that's awesome, and I bet that Ruger sounds quite the keepsake. That sounds really
beauty.
Cool. So that was your first exposure. So leading into that, from understanding in a second, how does IP-43 and IP-44 make you feel, or what do you think about them? 43 being the assault weapons ban for any person in this group for some reason that doesn't know that, and 44 being the safe storage law.
43 it's got to go away. Here's the deal. It's a two-edged sword for me, for a Republican, because of course I would never sign that petition. I would never vote for it. But if it got on the ballot, more Republicans would come out and vote than you would ever know.
Oh, that's
the kind of turnout that would get a bunch of Republicans elected.
That would be the horrible but good consequence. The horrible situation but good consequence for sure.
Politically, it would be, all the Republicans coming out would vote it down. So that would be a good thing, right?
Oh, exactly. I mean, that's why Democrats in Salem have been pretty much silent on it, because they know it's toxic for them.
That's right. It's a good measure to put on the ballot in that regard. But it would be sad if it got enough votes to get to the ballot. And we just hope that doesn't happen, to show that Oregonians, I mean, even in Democrats, there's lots of sportsmen out there, that love their guns, and we can't have a bill like that.
Yeah, that bill I think even when Democrats here, I was talking to someone in your campaign, and we were just having this same old conversation. Is that we was talking to his Democrat friends, or friends that are Democrats, they didn't realize how far-reaching even if they wanted something as bad as an assault weapons ban, which we are definitely not for in any way, this is even way beyond that, way more draconian than they realize.
This is tyranny. This is turning us into those areas from World War II era when people's weapons were usurped and taken away from them.
Absolutely. And then a point we like to make on the group that I think I've brought up with each one, and you can agree or disagree with this, but if we find, and we'd see as most laws go, such as this, if we compare this to the drug war or compare this to other things, there would probably be minority communities, the communities that they're trying to protect the most, that would probably be hurt the most by these. Because I just, the way laws go and the way things go, it's not going to be my door getting knocked down. It's going to be, someone not being able to get access to 15-round magazines and, being able to defend themselves in inner city area or a crappy neighborhood
or even out in the deep rural areas, because we can't get sheriffs out there quickly enough because the funding has been pulled back, and this goes all into timber and everything else. I don't want to get into
but that's valid. There's no police out there.
They have the only way to stop a bad guy with a gun is the answer to that
is hopefully with a gun, or it's definitely not going to be 911 out there, because it's going to be a long time.
We have to preserve these. And if I can go into the Constitution and the Second Amendment and the First Amendment, we can't chip away at the Constitution. That is what was written to guarantee our liberty, to keep us from being ruled by tyrants and have things taken away from us. And that's why it's a beautiful document, and it's got to be preserved. We can't start pecking away at it.
No, obviously, we agree with that. So hopefully these ballot measures fail. The next 2 years, we're still going to have Democrats most likely having some form of a majority in the legislature. What would you plan solution-wise to go on the offensive as governor? How would you try to take this from an advocate's kind of point of view, or would you even take that kind of advocate's point of view as governor?
I would absolutely advocate for the Second Amendment rights. You betcha. And here's the first step. The first day in office, anything that comes to my desk, now I have the veto power. And having that power alone doesn't mean I'm going to wind up vetoing a lot of stuff. What it means is both sides, if you will, the Republicans and the Democrats, are going to have to get together and write stuff that's decent. It's not going to be carte blanche anymore, or as I like to say, Kate Blanche, where it just sails through the governor's chair, right?
Yeah.
So it's not. That's the first big step, and that's the way I advocate for the Second Amendment right off the bat, without even saying anything, is having the veto pen. And setting a tone, but make it a positive tone, not a negative tone. We need to preserve individual rights. We need to preserve the right to maintain and bear firearms.
No, we totally agree. It's not that legislation necessarily doesn't have to happen, but it's that respect. We were talking to Mark, and I mentioned this to you earlier. Is talking to Mark Herbert, who's running for the 11th district seat as a Republican. He was trying to talk about having some. He's more of a moderate, and that's fine. He was trying to talk about having some kind of training or something before you buy a firearm, which we at the group are not for as a pre-screening due to you didn't do anything wrong. Thus, we should protect our Fifth Amendment rights as well. But firearm education in school, if we could come together on something like that, I mean, those are the kind of things we would love to see. Hopefully, at the state worked across the aisle, but that probably terrifies them, and they probably don't want to do that.
It would be terrific to do that. Here, let's go back to who can get weapons and mental. Let's talk about mental health issues. In Oregon, we're 44th in the nation in access to mental health help. We need to fix that, and we need to be able to document it. We don't want the same thing that happened in Lakeland to happen here, because there was a guy with a gun that shouldn't have had it, right?
And the laws were already there in place.
Yeah. And he had been reported on many times. Yeah. He should have been stopped. So we need to have mental health issues looked at. And the other thing we need to have for our schools, the NRA came up with the National School Shield Program, and they've offered it to police forces around the country, and they train the police, and then the police go out and survey the schools and do an assessment of where the threat level is at a school as far as entry to the school and things like that, how easily a bad guy can get in there. So those are the kind of positive steps that don't abrogate the Second Amendment. It's not the guns, it's the people carrying them.
It's like these firearms have been around since. I mean, the AR-15 was invented in the 50s and has been around in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and it's more of a modern phenomenon. So it's obviously not the firearm, but I didn't know about. So that's the NRA Shield program. We'll have to dive into that.
I think it's National School Shield or National Safety Shield. It's look on the NRA website and look it up. It's kind of cool.
I haven't heard of that. That's a really good, and that leads into that next question or that next idea that I've asked everyone, which is, what are your ideas to lower I mean, this is a multi-part question, but to lower firearm crime in general, which, to be fair, is at the lowest it's ever been. But
Yes, correct.
but lower is always good, right? So what would we do to lower it? How would we stop mass shootings, or how can we deal with the mass shooting threat, which is we've already alluded to? And then what can we do about accidents? Because in the country, accidents, account for about 800 to 1,000, give or take what year, of deaths. So how would you think go about tackling that? Because the left still has concerns. They still see people dying.
Right. Well, as I alluded to a little bit ago, we have to make sure that people who have not demonstrated the mental ability to bear arms, that they're kept away from them.
Right.
And we keep the arms. And that doesn't mean Cousin Johnny calls about Uncle Billy and says, right, hey, Uncle Billy needs to have his guns taken away, and then they go take his guns away. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, mental or medical field people that do a reasonable assessment, and then we go through steps that assure that the law is followed, and there's a process that's legal.
I like how you bring up medical professionals there, because when the mental health gets brought up, that someone needs to be competent, or that they don't have like a mental health issue, the big question that is always posed is, well, where's the line? Like, how are we going to figure that out? And if we don't talk to mental health, officials, that line could be depression, right, which thousands of people have and is treatable, or is it, bipolar, or is it where are we going to draw that line? So I don't know if people take that into consideration.
Right? It's a tough question, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, bringing up that we have to talk to those medical professionals is, I think, a really good step, because your background lends itself to being governor. Mine definitely doesn't lend itself for mental health, so maybe we should talk to those professionals. Absolutely,
yeah. And before we write laws that take guns away without due process, that's the big put quotation marks around due process. We make sure we know where we're going with that, and not just go willy-nilly into the night with that and run up on people's porches and grab their weapons, right?
Yeah, that's a dangerous precedent to set.
So you talked about who gets them, how we get them, the way forward. We just have to protect our rights. Go restate some more of your question. I know there about.
Yeah. So that question's kind of multi-part. So let's stick with lowering the firearm crime in general. Like, so let's just that pretty much is, how would you lower crime? I mean, if we're going to be brutally honest, but that's what people are concerned about, especially in the Portland area, I would guess, or Medford or Ontario, in those areas where there's firearm crime. How would you deal with the violence that happens with firearms? Because I don't think it's that much, and it doesn't really matter about the firearm, but it does happen.
It does. I think in a very, very broad look, we have to change our culture a little bit and get. Okay, I'm going to do a political thing here.
No, you're fine.
More people working. We have to get more job availability, more good labor available out there. Taking advantage of our natural resources so that people can get to work and not be, perhaps lured into a situation where they want to take somebody else's stuff and they have a weapon, and so they go and take it. So we've got to work on that culturally to bring people to prosperity, and that's what I want to do with the state. But let's I know that's broad.
No, but it's a socioeconomic issue.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And then let's not cast a downward eye at people who get concealed carry permits. Let's make that let's look at that as perhaps a good thing. It is a good thing,
right?
Because the criminals that have guns are going to be less likely to go into a store or a place or into the street if they know that there are people with concealed carry licenses out there that are responsible, that, however, responsible, yet they will react if their lives are threatened, especially if their life is threatened.
Yeah.
And I personally have a concealed carry license, and I'm pretty happy with that. I feel safer, and I think we need to be. That's another way to approach stopping bad guys with guns.
Yeah, absolutely.
Deterring them. Knowing that there are people out there with concealed carry permits and with that are armed, that'll stop them.
Yeah, I mean, you don't see these mass shootings happening at courthouses.
No.
You know, like you don't see them happening where I don't think, and anyone in the comments can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think any of the past mass shootings or that there's a statistical measurable amount that have happened in a outside of a non-gun zone or a gun-free zone. I think they've almost exclusively happened, and that has to be a reason that we were looking at Aurora. I can't remember what video brought it up. It could have been one of the NRA's channel or someone. But they brought up that Aurora in Colorado, that the shooter, he had the option to go to like 5 different movie theaters, much closer to his house. And that one was bigger, one was cheaper to get into, and one was like clearly like a closer drive. He went to the farthest one, the most expensive, with the smallest amount of people seeing The Dark Knight, but it was the only gun-free zone. And I think there was text or something alluding to him or some kind of note, and it was the same thing in Detroit with that kid that was caught by the FBI trying to join ISIS, where he was like, I'm going to go to this church because he had text messages saying, because they don't have guns. So, like, I mean, it seems obvious.
Well, the other thing that I do, I hope a lot of people do this, in church this morning, and whenever I go to a large group of people, an area where there's a large group of people, I always build a scenario. What will I do?
But that's that might be the military side. I don't know if that's everyone.
Partially military. Yeah. Some guy comes charging down the aisle from the back.
Right.
I'm not going to scream and cry and fall on the floor, which I hope most everybody else does, but not me, man. I am, I'm going to start throwing chairs. I'm going to hit that guy. And, I'm old enough now that, if he gets off a lucky shot, the heck with it. But somebody else, if you start a reaction, if you react positively like that to take somebody out, it'll bring others in. And we have to be ready to do that. So I build a scenario, even on airplanes, everywhere I go. Don't call it, it's not paranoia.
No, it's not.
It's readiness, like like military.
We do it while we drive, right? That's how we're taught to drive, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? While you're driving, you're like, okay, that guy could do this, and so I need to be at this, distance, and no one criticizes us for that, which we do every single day. But if you do that while in a restaurant, your paranoid seems really hypocritical and doesn't make any sense.
Well, I can tell you a little personal story, and this whole thing may get a little long, but this is only about 30 seconds. I'm having dinner downtown Portland, and this doesn't have to do with guns, but it could have. And 3 guys were across the street beating on a younger fella, maybe 16-year-old. I jumped up from my chair at dinner, ran outside the restaurant, and ran over screaming at the top of my lungs in the deepest voice I could, knock it off. I mean, somebody's got to do something, right? And this all goes back to how do you stop crime? How do you stop, criminals with guns? I didn't know if they are, but I'm going to get out there and, get it stopped. So that's one thing that people need to have some responsibility for that.
Be proactive. No, I 100% agree. And, you always hear the counter argument that, like, you brought up the church and you're like, well, that's ridiculous. He could have shot, other people and, it could be the Wild Wild West. But a couple of things with that's never happened, ever, in a mass shooting. There has never been. His CHL holders stop mass shootings all the time. And you can't find me one story where a CHL holder shot someone by accident in a mass shooting. You also can't find, which is the common, is that the police, when you bring up the teacher situation, the police are going to come in, they're going to see someone with a gun and they're going to shoot them. This never happened. It's crazy that it's never happened. I'm actually surprised, but the police have never accidentally shot someone in one of these mass shootings. Ever.
Right.
Which is, like, statistically doesn't even make sense. You would think there'd be one, but you can't even. So it's just a ludicrous argument, not on logic or understanding. So, no, that's great to hear. That it sounds like you're within our mindset, like the same, because we all carry. I mean, we live in Portland. I carry everywhere. Like, it's.
By the way, just to show you some of my support, the rally in Sandy last weekend.
Yeah, you were there. That's right.
I was there and I got interviewed, and it was nice to be with people that are like-minded. It was great to be with people that are like-minded, so that was cool. Yeah,
that group, the women's rallies group, they did a really good job, and we posted your interview on the page, actually, on the group. So it was it was out there a couple days ago. So that's pretty much all the basic questions. I'm sure there's going to be follow-ups in the comments, so we can do another.
Yeah, let me later. If there's some negatives, let me know, man, because I want to have a chance to come back.
There'll be somebody. There's always, out of 116,000, there's someone listening right now that are just like, I got them right now. So we can get you back on. Is there anything else you'd like to add? You want to plug your website and your Facebook? I'll also post it, but.
Woolridge4Oregon.com is the website, and then we have a Facebook site. So it's up and around.
I'll link all that onto this post.
Pretty cool video there of some flying stuff that people like. It's gotten about 400,000 views, but
nice.
You guys need to take a look at that. It's fun.
That's awesome.
I'm with you. Let's protect our Constitution and our Second Amendment rights all the way. We can't do IP43. Can't do it.
Sounds great. Well, I think that about wraps it up. Thank you for coming on. I look forward to having you on again or seeing where this goes.
Anytime. Thanks, Corey.
Well, thank you.
Talk to you.